We're going to get started with Greg Judy. He's a regenerative rock star. I've got a few regenerative rock stars, and he's one of them. So I remember reading Greg's book, I don't know how many years ago. When did you write your first book?
2001.
Yeah, so probably about 2002 I was reading his book, and I got some great ideas. The gravity flow water system is one I really remember getting out of that book. But it's kind of funny because he is Green Pastures Farm, and I am Greener Pastures Ranching. So he started off custom grazing on leased land. I custom graze on leased land. So we're like, what's the term? Doppelgangers in different countries. So really proud to have Greg Judy here today. We're going to go start off with a presentation on grazing. What was it called?
Yep. How to think like a grazer.
How to think like a grazer. So we will get Greg up here.
Well, thank you, Steve. Somebody want to hit the lights a little bit? Yeah, so Jan and I, we come to you from central Missouri. We run a grazing operation there, and we started out very conventional back in the day. We didn't have a whole lot, and so we were following what the experts told us to do, and it didn't work out so well for us. You know, we went out and got a loan and bought the land and bought the animals and all the equipment, and at the end of the year, there wasn't a whole lot left. And I remember the banker coming up to me, and he said, "Greg, we had a pretty good year." I'm like, "Well, you had a pretty good year, but I didn't." You know, he said, "Well, let's do this again next year." And I'm like, "Well, I don't think I want to do this again next year." So we started thinking unconventional. And one of the things that we started doing was trying to figure out how to make the most money from grass. In other words, take my mind off the equipment, take my mind off of buying land. I'm not saying buying land is a bad investment. It's not. It's a good investment if it's done right. But starting out, I didn't have any money, and I'd put all my money into land. And so I didn't have any capital left to buy livestock. And so there was an old guy, he's passed away. He's the owner of the Stockman Grass Farmer, Alan Nation. Some of y'all may have heard of Alan. And Alan wrote an article, and I read it, and it said, your sole purpose in life should not be to own the land, but to control it. And what he was talking about, of course, is leasing land. And so that got my interest going, and we started looking around our local community, and we live in a very rural area. And we were able to start getting some leases on these idle pieces of property. And so we started out, of course, in 1999, we got our first lease. And today, I think we're at 1,900 acres. We've got about 19 farms, and they're all within 5 miles of our, what we call the Judy farm. So we're able to walk the animals. I'm interested in a farm as long as I can walk animals to it. Because we run between 350 to 450 animal units all year round, and I don't want to have to haul them. So I'll go into that more. So folks, we are in the solar energy business. We're taking a grass leaf, or it may be a leaf off of a tree. We're converting that to a saleable product in the form of a really healthy protein, beef. And we don't live in a grain area. That's why we've been able to get these leases. There's nobody doing any cropping around us. We're very hilly. The land that we got was land that nobody else wanted. And so I didn't have any money to improve the soil. In other words, I couldn't go out and buy the lime, the phosphorus, the potash, and nitrogen, all that, all the trace elements that the soil test called for. I couldn't do it. I didn't have any money. And so about that time, I met a fellow named Ian Mitchell-Innes. And Ian Mitchell-Innes has been a huge help to us. He's a South African rancher. He runs about 14,000 acres. He's running between 4,000 to 6,000 head of cattle on that. And it's one mob. So they're being moved constantly. And Ian said, we're not really grass farmers, we're microbe farmers. And that took it to a new level to me. So we started focusing on the soil, feeding the soil. That's what we're talking about here. And if you have healthy soil, folks, you're going to have healthy plants. And healthy plants bring healthy animals, and at the end of the day, healthy community. Get more people making a living on the land. That's what I'm all about. It's trying to get more people that can make it without buying all these inputs. So this is an old CRP field, which is, they call it the Conservation Reserve Program. They pay farmers not to farm it. We have a lot of that acreage in the United States now. And this particular farmer took it out. He's like, no, I'm done with it. And so we took it over and we started grazing it. And we took it over, it was pretty much all moss and broom sedge. There wasn't much there. But now we're growing some really good leaves. But focusing on trampling, getting the litter bank established. You're going to hear me talk today a lot about the litter bank. Folks, it's residue. If you don't keep some kind of residue on the surface of your pasture when you leave, and you get in a drought, you're in trouble. Because there's nothing there to keep the soil from drying out. You got to keep that sun off your soil if it's not raining. Here's a picture I'm not real proud of, but it happened. This is a farm we leased. That was that would be the second year. It was soybeans. Every year the crop farmer, he didn't even rotate. He didn't put in a corn, soy, wheat rotation. It was just soybeans. And you can tell he didn't do the best job with his weeds because there was a lot of cockleburs in there. That's what came up. So the next year we unrolled hay on it, and I got a really good crop of burrs. That's what was in the seed bank from the cropping days. And the reason I'm showing you that picture, folks, is this is a mistake that I made. I tried to get the cows to eat that. This is my second year of mob grazing, and I found out that cattle, when you get them in tight, they will eat this stuff. And I made them eat it. They ate it off to the ground. And like, boy, I whipped those birds. Because see, I was so focused on this darn cocklebur. That's what that is. That's all I could think about was I got to get rid of the cocklebur, and I've got a tool that I can use, the animal. I didn't own a tractor. I didn't have a brush hog. That's the only way I had to deal with them was eat them. Well, Ian was there in the fall. Our guy from Africa, he helps me with our grazing school every year. He's like, Greg, when are you going to get tired of grazing cockleburs? I said, well, I was tired 2 years ago. He said, then quit grazing it like you're grazing it. You got to act like you don't own it. I'm like, okay, what are you talking about? He said, in the springtime, don't graze that area. Go around it. And so that's what we did. The following spring, the cocklebur in Missouri will come up in June 1st. He's a little guy. Well, I didn't graze it. So all the clover, the fescue, the orchard grass, it all got to grow because I didn't graze it. I went there on June 1st and I pulled that canopy back and there was not millions, there were thousands of these little birds coming up, but they were yellow. Folks, I blocked them out. They couldn't get any sunlight. And today, this happened in 1 year. This is what it turned to. So 50 years of row crop and focusing on what I wanted. So folks, what was I doing? By putting the animals on there and making meat the burrs, the cows went in and ate all the orchard grass. They ate all the fescue and all the clover down to the ground. Then they ate the cocklebur. So I was weakening my good plants. The cows were taking down the good plants to the ground. Then they were removing the cocklebur. Well, the cocklebur, it came back in droves because now it had sunlight. I'd taken off all the canopy. So Ian's parting words were, as long as you stay focused on weeds, that's what you're going to have. Focus on what you want. So the most vulnerable time of a plant in its whole life is right when it comes out of the ground in the spring. Put some pressure on it. Don't take too much of that canopy off or you will have a wreck of weeds. That's what I found out here. Folks, that kind of forage we can make a good living on. Yeah, that's 2 to 3 pounds a day gain type forage. So that's 75 years of no livestock. This is another piece of ground that we got. It's a lease farm. And this particular landowners, they'd never got any livestock on it. They couldn't. It didn't have any fence on it. It didn't have any water on it. And so Jan and I will go in and build a pond, or y'all call them dugouts. If I can get a lease, a 5 to 7 year lease, I'll put a dugout on your property. I'll pay for it. But the price of the dugout comes off of the lease. That way, they get a dugout. In our part of the world, everybody likes a pond on their farm. for recreation. That's what they do. They put fish in it. They may go swimming in it. They may put a boat dock on it. I don't care what they put on it. As long as I've got livestock water, I'm happy. So they're happy and I'm happy. So this has been a farm that we got like that. Folks, I'd have thrown a match on that. In my old days, I'll admit it, I was a burnaholic. I loved to burn old grass. So it had this huge accumulation of duff on it. And I'd burn that off, and then when I got it burned off, I'd broadcast like 3 pounds of red clover seed on it. And it'd come up, and then in July, everything just dried out and died. I'm like, what? Why was it so pretty in the spring and now it's all dead? I burnt the carbon. I had the carbon in place. All I had to do is take ruminant animals in and trample it on the ground. Done. But nope, I had to throw a match on it. I'll show you the picture of this farm. I got it. It's coming up here in a minute. There it is. So there it is. That's the old duff. And I brought the cattle in there on long, narrow rectangles. So folks, if you want to get animals to trample and get your litter bank established, first of all, you got to have something for them to trample. But the shape of your paddock makes a big difference. So in this particular case, I had my water source behind us. I made long, narrow rectangles. And so those cattle could be rotated through those rectangles and go back to water each day. So the longer and narrower, the more trampling you get. The more square your paddock, the more goes through the cow. Okay? So if you're trying to get a litter bank, the best way to do it is long, narrow rectangles. Rest followed by animal impact. So you can beat this land up with animals, but you got to give it rest. Rest is one of the strongest tools we have in our grazer's toolbox. And it's a tough one. It's a tough one because people have smaller farms, and what they're doing, I'll go onto the farm. I do consulting all over the United States. And the first thing I see when I go into a farm that's a wreck, they're going to have at least 3 to 5 herds. They'll have their stocker herd. These would be steers. They may have a heifer herd that they don't want exposed to the bull. They've got a cow-calf herd going over here. Maybe they've got a bull herd over here. It's a wreck. It's an absolute wreck. First of all, the more herds you have on your farm, you're spreading your labor over 5 different areas. You could go out there and move them maybe twice. I can see having a bull herd and a cow herd. But all these other herds, Ian came to my farm the first time in 2006. And I had my stocker herd out in front. I had about 120 yearlings, steers, and they were in front of the cows. And the cow calves. And he goes, "What are you doing something stupid like that for?" He's very blunt. I'm like, "Well, Ian, that's my finishing herd. They got to have the best, they won't get fat." He goes, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." He says, "So you're telling me on the Serengeti, you got 1 million wildebeest going across the Serengeti, and the yearlings go, we're going to go over here and get fat. We're going to leave the herd." He said, "If I did, they'd all get eaten by a lion." He said, "No, they stay in the mob, and you can get them fat in the mob." But now, instead of focusing on the cow, making sure she's full each day, you focus on those steers. Make sure they're full. You can get them fat in the mob. You don't need to take them out. So that was a big one for me. I wasn't sure it would work. That was in 2006. We've done it every year since. It works fine. Just leave the yearlings in there. Concentrate. Make sure you give them plenty to eat, and they'll do fine. This is a typical summer pasture that got away from us. So in the springtime, folks in Missouri, we call it the spring flush. About May 10th, you'll have grass about this tall, and by May 17th, it's up here. It just goes boom, it explodes. And it does that in 7 to 10 days. You can't keep up with it. And you could use 3 times your stocking rate for those 10 days. Well, then it gets hot, and then it doesn't rain, so you don't need that stocking rate a month later. So what we do to take care of that is we'll drop off maybe a quarter of our paddocks. We don't even graze them in the springtime. We just go around them. And then we come back and do this. So these cows will come in like that. We put a wire, and we strip graze this stuff. Now you look at that, and it's pretty rank. It is. It's over mature. a lot of that has already went to seed. And you're like, what are they going to eat in there? Well, they're going after the annuals. There's summer annuals in there that come up, and they can make a living on that. So that's day 1, that's day 2. So they were on there for about 10 hours at 100,000 pounds per acre. So we put 100,000 pounds of beef per acre, and we moved them. And so they trampled that on the ground, and it looked like this on a close-up view. So typically, this is the hardest part for a grazer to get over. It was for me. I'm like, I'm going to leave them there another day. Look at all that forage they trampled on the ground. Well, this is about the time I met Ian, and Ian's like, Greg, you said, for every grass blade that you can trample on the ground with a ruminant hoof, you get 2 back. And I thought about that a minute, and I'm like, you mean to tell me if I'm willing to, if you want to call it that, I'll use the term waste. If I waste a blade of grass and put it on the ground, I get 2 back? Sign me up for that. I'll do that every day. Ian even goes to the point that if you don't have a litter bank on your farm, sometimes it's more valuable. It'll pay you back better to trample it on the ground than to run it through the gut of a cow. That's how valuable your litter bank is. And so that's what we did here. We laid it on the ground. We gave it time. So that was 1 month later. Folks, this farm didn't have any legumes on it. Where'd those legumes come from? The animals beat that ground up and put a nice layer of mulch on it. It's perfect growing conditions. And of course, we had some rain. We were getting rain about every 12 to 14 days. And then it looked like that. And then this was the ending process right there. So the castings, these are all earthworm castings. I didn't have any worms on that farm. This is what we call Marshall's farm. He was an old landowner. He passed away at 96. And Marshall had 12 cows and a bull on that farm for 75 years. 1 paddock. 160 acres, 1 paddock. It wasn't the same 12 cows, but you get my drift. They never rotated. They stayed on that farm. And so when Marshall got older, he was probably in his late 80s. He said, Greg, I can't handle the cows anymore. He said, would you be interested? I'm like, heck yes. Because our farm fastened on to Marshall. And so the first thing that Jan and I did when we got his farm, it looked like a golf course. And Marshall, great old guy, but he said, where's your cows? Why aren't you bringing the cows? I said, Marshall, I'm gonna give it a rest. Oh, you may waste a lot. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna waste a lot. And so we let it grow up. We gave it a sabbatical. We didn't come in there. And that was that same farm you're looking at right here. Folks, the ground on his farm was covered with earthworm castings when we got done. So if you feed them, they'll come. And that earthworm casting you're looking at there, that's a castle, by the way. The pH on an earthworm casting 7 is perfect. And the biggest development we've ever seen on our farm was counting earthworms. We counted 463 earthworms in 1 manure pile. 463. That was an aha moment for me. I'm like, wait a minute, we need to feed the worms. And then they'll feed the soil and they'll feed us. That's what we found out. So we started from that, and now we're growing a lot more winter stockpile forage. That's a practice that we use in Missouri. Most of my neighbors are feeding hay probably 2 months earlier than this. They just don't rotate. They don't take care of the grass, so they don't have any winter feed. But we found out by lengthening our recovery period in the summertime that we can grow a lot of grass going into fall. And folks, that's really high quality grass. It's got a little bit of green in it. Our primary grass is fescue. It stays green pretty much all winter long. The bottom portion. Now the tops will turn brown, but it's really good feed. And we don't give them the whole farm. You know, there's a wire in front of those cows, keeping them from going forward. And so we're getting a good litter bank behind them. We're not taking it down to the ground. Yeah, right up through there, there's a wire. And so those cows, we're rationing it out like you would hay. If you set out big round bales and just moved the wire, we're doing the same thing with forage. Okay? That is a more close-up view. So right here would be where they were yesterday in front, and then we move the wire and they're on a new piece. And we're very careful that we don't graze it down too short, because if we get a winter rain, I don't want to give my rain to my neighbor. I want to keep it there. And so if I've got a nice carbon sink there, I'm not going to get any runoff. There's a typical winter, we'll get some snow, but we're not like you folks up here in the respect that we get warm. So we may get a 2-foot snow, and it may stay on 4 to 5 weeks, or it may be gone in 10 days. It may come back up to 50 degrees. I know I'm using degrees F and you all are C, so I can't convert it in my mind, so you all just have to figure that one out.
Above freezing. Simple, snow melt.
Yeah, snow melts, that's right.
Can we go back to the other picture?
You would. That one?
Yeah. So what's happening out there?
Yeah, so what's happening is where the forage is tall, it sticks through the snow, because we do get warm, we'll get the sun coming up. We found out where we have the taller forage, it melts the snow off. That's a big plus. Once it's grazed off and you get snow on it, it will not melt off. Not if it stays cold. The sheep are even better. The sheep will go out there and they'll dig through the snow, just spots all over the top of the whole field. And within a day, the snow's gone, because they've opened up all these brown circles. And then it creeps into the next one. The sun just takes all the snow off. So sheep are really good about that. They use a foot. They'll dig like a deer. A cow uses his head and pushes, but a sheep will dig. I'm proud of that picture, folks. That's the snow. That's pretty good snow for central Missouri. I know y'all are laughing like that's just a flake for you all. That's a snow from Missouri, all right? That's a dusting. Well, Missouri shut down the whole state of Missouri was shut down for 3 days. They didn't have the snow equipment to deal with that. Okay, and I couldn't unroll hay anymore. It really upset me. My bale wouldn't unroll because the snow would gather up in front of it. I'm like, darn it, I'm going to keep unrolling hay one way or the other. Well, we had a tractor by this time, and so this is what we did. I made windrows all the way through my farm, and we just started unrolling hay out on the pasture. Now, I've tried bale grazing. Folks, that ground's wet under there. It was all I could do to get out to the tractor and not leave ruts. But I was able to go one pass, and I threw the snow back, and now we're able to unroll hay on that. I would love to be able to bale graze, because you just set the bales out, and you don't have to start a tractor the rest of the winter, but we can't do that. It's so wet. The cows just absolutely take all the sod out of your farm. But I can do this. Most of our neighbors have a feed lot. That's where they feed them at all winter long. And they have to move that manure. There's another picture of it. So it's always keeping the fertility out in the field where it'll grow me some grass. And one of the things that people do around me is they put them in the feed lot and they're like, well, we'll just scoop all that up. You can do that. Diesel fuel, hit almost $5 a gallon in the States this year. That's not real doable. It's going to get less doable, I think. I just see fuel going higher. So the animals did all the work here. They put all the poop and the pee and the carbon out on the land. I did have to bring it to them, but it's a small price to pay. We ran out of forage, so we walked them down the road to the next farm, and this is the sheep. The sheep actually are a lot hardier than the cows are as far as digging through snow and such. That snow was deep enough they couldn't really dig through it. So I went back there and just bladed some windrows, and we've got our sheep broke to one hot wire. It's a 1 10-inch wire, and this was crazy. I still can't believe they did it, but it was probably 10 days. I was trying to keep the cows fed, and I'm like, I probably ought to go check on them sheep. And they're tough, though. They'd found the south slope, and they dug the snow back. But the wire, that was about a 22-inch snow, and my wire was down here under the snow. those sheep did not move. They stayed on that paddock. I guess they could hear that wire under the snow popping. They're like, we're not going through it. That's the secret of having a hot fence. You know, for sheep we found 8,000 volts is really nice. When we get into this is ice, and we get our share of ice. It covers everything in ice, and sometimes you can't even get out on the roads. This particular farm, we were lucky to go through another farm, and we didn't have to get out on the public roads because they had them shut down. But we wait for the ice to melt off because it's pretty hard to graze in that ice. When you step on it with the ice on it, it breaks the leaves off. It just breaks them off. And so the cow, everything it steps on, you're never going to get that through the cow. And in the wintertime, that's stockpile. I'm not trying to build my carbon bank with that. It's worth too much money. Folks, we had to pay $70 to $75 a bale for hay. That's for a 1,200 pound bale, so that would be $150 or so a ton. This year is probably going to be that, or maybe a little less, because we've had a little bit more rain. The fertilizer prices, you know, the people that are baling hay, they've got to buy fertilizer, and it's still pretty expensive. So we'll let that melt off, and then we'll come in and do that. One of the practices that we started several years ago was not weaning. So those cows all have their calves still on them. And that would be an April, May born calf, and this would be February. But you notice most of those cattle have pretty good gut capacity on them. You got to have a big gut on your cows if you're going to try and winter cattle on forage with a calf. And I'm going to get into more of that on my next talk, how we brought that about and how that's working out for us. Silvopasture. So we've got 1,900 acres. About 900 of that has got some brush on it at different levels. Some of it's so darn thick, you can't hardly walk through it. And so we'll go in with a chainsaw or a skid steer, if it's small stuff, we'll push it out. And then we bring in hay in the wintertime and unroll on those areas. That's a clover field that just got hammered by feet. And that's what came up. It was fescue before that. So this is a typical fall grazing. We call this bruising the ground. We're bruising the ground with the feet. So we're trying to get a little impact on all that paddock, that grazing past, then we're gone. Now I don't want them to eat it all. This is fall. I can still grow grass clear up to about October 20th. We'll get a really hard killing frost about the 20th of October, and after that we're done. We're not going to grow much grass after that. But through August, September, if you don't graze it off too short, you're still getting regrowth in the fall. To me, that's worth a lot of money. That's a riparian zone that we've healed. We leased that farm back in 2001. Yep, it was 2001, and it was all dirt. The previous landowner let the cows in the stream all the time. They took out all the grass, turned that into just a mess. It was a muck, and that was black. They were making those cattle drink that water. But we run a wire across it, high density, 12 hours, and then we're gone. We're trying to duplicate kind of what happened with the buffalo for many years. This is my neighbor's water source. So he took and he doesn't fence them out of it, he just lets them in there, and he had a health wreck. He ended up having to doctor his whole herd. He lost a couple of them. That water is super high in nitrates, and he was using that as his primary water source. Folks, cattle are 70% water. You don't want to be doing that. There's good water right there. I like to have the way I look at it is if I would drink it, I'll let a cow drink it. If I'm not going to drink it, I'm not going to force my cows to drink it. They've done some studies now in the U.S. where they showed a calf weaning weight. A calf that had exposure to really high quality water versus one that didn't, 50 pounds more weaning weight in the fall. 50 pounds. I just talked to the guys up at Dawson Creek. They sold a group of calves the other day. I think it was $4 a pound for 400 pounders. I don't know, that sounds pretty good to me. $4 a pound times, that's $200 a head just for giving them good water. And people say, well, I can't afford to put water out there on my pasture. You can't afford not to put good water out there. There's a huge payback. It's quick. It's quick. There's things to spend money on and there's things not to spend money on. Water and fence, you need to be thinking about that. Okay, this is a plant we have in Missouri. It covered the whole state back before the white settlers came and plowed, and they killed it. This is eastern gamma grass. This one has a root system on it 22 feet long. It's a warm season, and we've got it on our farms now. So in the summertime, when it gets hot and hasn't rained for 8 weeks, this plant doesn't even think it. It doesn't even know it's in a drought. It's like a tree. And so you can graze that every 30 days in the summertime. So it is a huge advantage for us to have some of this growing on our farms.
Just point out which one you want.
You bet.
This one?
That one right there. That would be awesome. Thank you, ma'am. That's big blue stems. That's another native warm season grass. And it does just about the same. I think it's down 12 feet. This is the grass that was grown in New Mexico. The settlers talked about out at Albuquerque where they could ride across the range on a horse and the grass hit the saddle horn. We killed it. It's gone. It's still in the seed bank out there, but it's not being grazed correct. It's continuously grazing. So
Had shorter horses back then.
yeah. Folks, that's right. I mean, you go into Albuquerque today, it's just a desert. You know, there's parts of that area out there you can only graze every 2 years. Every 2 years. You got to let it set for 2 years. Graze it once and you got to let it set for 2 years. Can you imagine trying to make a living on that? 80 acres for one cow. 80 acres. Yeah.
How are our extension people telling us how to get this back in the field?
Yeah, well, yeah, you got to spray it. You know, the professional extension, I'm not a real big fan of theirs. I used to be until I started downplaying glyphosate. Folks, Monsanto's got a $78 million building they built on University of Missouri. It's called the Monsanto Center. And when you start knocking that, they come after you, okay? They're telling everybody you got to spray your whole farm with glyphosate to get this to grow. And I'm like, what? You mean I got to kill everything growing and then take a chance in putting this out there, and what if it doesn't come up? Now I don't have anything. I don't have anything for my animals to eat. So be careful. Who's telling you to do what? Where's the money flow going to? Okay, go ahead. This is a cover crop. This is a 9-way species. That picture has special meaning to me because that's Dave Brandt's son. Dave Brandt got killed 3 weeks ago. He was delivering cover crop seed to a guy in Illinois, and he got killed in a car wreck. Dave Brandt was a pioneer of cover crops in the United States. He was doing it way before you ever heard who Gabe Brown was. And Dave was the most humble human being you've ever met. I bet you he came up here in Canada a few times, possibly. I'm not sure, but he traveled a lot. He was a really neat old farmer. This is a 9-way species from his son. That's what it is. That's what came up. Now, that was about 45 days after putting it in the ground. So it had grazing corn, soybeans, pearl millet, sorghum sudan, radish, Egyptian cabbage, sun hemp, and sunflower, and I've left out a couple others. But it was a really good seeding to put into pasture for the summertime. It's all warm season, okay? We're starting to see the dung beetles come back now. Folks, we custom grazed. Jan and I custom grazed for 7 years. From about we started our first one in 1997, and we had to pour Ivomec on these animals, or we didn't get them. The cattle owners demanded that Ivomec be poured down their back when they turned them loose on our farms. And the easiest time to do it was when they came out of the truck down the chute. And so I tell people I slept with the devil for 7 years. I did it. I knew it wasn't right, but I did it anyway. Because I had to get the cattle. I had to make a living. Well, Jan and I finally saved up enough money that we bought our own herd now. We don't, we own them. We don't have to do that anymore. But that's a dung beetle hole. The dung beetles started coming back once we stopped pouring the Avamec on them. Because we were killing them. The dung beetles would go into the manure pat and eat that manure, boom, dead. And the manure piles weren't breaking down very fast. We had manure piles that stayed there 2, 3, 4 years. Today, in one rotation, you come back, you can't find them. They're just gone. The microbes, the earthworms, the dung beetles are taking them into the soil. There they are. So they're rolling it up into it. That's a roller, a tumbler roller. They're digging a hole down in the ground. And the female dung beetle lays a little dung beetle larvae inside that dung ball. They've put it down in the ground, like this deep. And that hole, Dr. Pat Richardson did an aquarium like you would with fish. She put a bunch of dung beetles in there. And those holes go like spider web. They go everywhere. So not just one main hole going down. There's a series of tunnels. And there's a dung ball in the end of each one of those tunnels. There they are. They're moving it. They're rolling it. They're going to the hole that they dug. Okay, go ahead. I love to look at manure piles. This is something that Ian taught me years ago. Folks, we can't climb inside of a cow. We can't tell really what's going on with a rumen every day, but we can by looking at the manure. If you'll learn to read your manure pats, you'll become a better grazer. If you've got a manure pat that's just about that tall, about 1/4 to 1/2 inch tall, there's something going on out there. The cow isn't getting enough selection, or you're making her eat the plants down too short. She's got too much protein. Maybe you've got too much clover or alfalfa, excess protein. That's a perfect manure pat. I get the warm fuzzies looking at that one. I've got my nice little pond in there, and I've got these ridges. All the way around that. And folks, I can open that manure pad up, and it's going to be full of dung beetles, the little dwellers. We have more dwellers than we do rollers and tumblers. But the dung beetles, what are they doing for us? They're living on the manure Slurpee. They're sucking the juice out of those manure pads. If we can get that juice out of there within 24 to 48 hours, there's no flies. Because the flies that went in there and laid larvae in there. And you go out in Missouri on a hot day and take your foot and open one up, it's going to be thousands of little white maggots. They're about that long. And the next day, they're flies sucking the blood out of your cattle. Dr. Truman Fincher was the godfather of dung beetles in the United States. And this is 30-some plus years ago. And he had a research going down at Texas A&M. And he started, that's about the time they came out with Ivamec. It was probably 45 years ago. And he started noticing that where they put the Ivamec on the cattle, the dung beetles weren't there. And then he started finding them dead. He's like, stop, don't do this. Do not do this. You're going to absolutely kill the cattle industry. Well, they came in and asked him, said, Truman, just shut up. You know, here's some money. Just tell people it's not as bad as what you say it is. And he goes, no, I'm not going to sell my soul. I can't do it. So they fired him, ripped out his research, stopped it, kicked him out of the university. Folks, today, because we don't have dung beetles, it's costing the U.S. cattle industry $3.5 billion. Not million, billion, in lost performance. Those flies are sucking the blood out of our cattle and irritating them enough that we're losing weight gain every day. They're just not gaining weight like they could be. When I was a little kid, I'd go out to milk the cow in the morning. They were everywhere. There was dung beetles everywhere. Not anymore. They're gone. So think about what you're doing. Yep. You can go on the next page. That's just us putting in paddocks daily. This is how we do it. You can go to the next one. This is the grass-fed beef, and we found out to really get good gains on grass-fed beef in Missouri, we need to have legumes. We got to have at least 30 to 40% legumes in our pastures. If we don't, they just don't get fat. They don't fatten out very, very well. And something I learned over time is this right here, the tail head. That steer has got the wrinkles in his neck, and his brisket is probably 7/8 filled out. But he's not ready to eat. he's not ready to eat. This one is. So they need to have a minimum of 3 wrinkles in the tail head. That one has 4. I like to see 3 to 4 wrinkles in the tail head on a grass-fed finished beef, and that's because that's the last place that the fat is layered down on a finished animal. And people say, well, I like grass-fed lean beef. I don't. I want that beef to be fat. I want to have the grass fat on it. That's where the flavor is. The flavor's not in the flesh, it's in the fat. If you don't have fat, you're going to have it's just not going to be a tasty piece of meat, okay? We've learned to use unfair advantages, and this is one of them. Sheep. So a lot of people have their farm fenced, especially in the States. They may have woven wire, they have 5 strands of barb, whatever. And it doesn't take a whole lot of modification to be able to run sheep on that farm. And the beautiful thing about sheep is they take out rose bushes, they take out thorn trees, and brush encroachment. They like round leaves. Now, they will graze a grass plant if they don't have anything else to eat, but they will target your weeds. They'll go after the weeds first, and then they'll eat your grass. So to me, all sheep do is make your cattle pasture better. You all have got a lot of wild rows. I've seen that we were up by Dawson Creek, Manning area. Man, there's a lot of wild rows out there. I'm like, boy, this is sheep feed deluxe. I'm just looking at it like, y'all could be making some money with sheep. Well, what about the wolves? And I'm like, well, I don't know about the wolves. I'd keep some guard dogs out there with them. I cry about coyotes. After I saw what they're dealing with up by Valley View, was that Valley View we were at? Yeah. Man, this guy had 2 wolves he'd killed, and those things are huge. We don't have those in Missouri yet. I hope we don't. But guard dogs will take care of a lot of that problem. They bark, and that certainly helps. We ran pigs with the rams. So the rams, this is the off season. They're not with the ewes. And we'd run pigs in with the rams. Somebody said you couldn't lamb with pigs because the pigs would eat the baby lambs. I've never seen a hog yet that could catch a baby lamb. They are quick. And furthermore, if that hog takes one more step toward her lamb, she's looking at him, the mama is, like, you come one more step, I'm going to knock you into next week. I mean, they can. They use that head and they can butt. And then they don't butt people, but they'll butt what they think is a predator. So we're walking the cows to the next farm. This is a neighbor that has soybeans. It doesn't have a fence on it, so we just run a portable wire along the gravel road. And we walk them down the road. And we are in a very rural area, and people say, well, you get permission from the law before you do that? And I'm like, no. Nope, I don't. I call myself the mayor of Rucker, and the mayor of Rucker said it's okay, so I'm going. It's easier to get forgiveness than it is permission. Just do it, and that's what we do. But it's pretty neat to be able to move your animals like that. Start looking at your soil. You ought to keep a spade with you and occasionally dig out a big chunk of dirt and see what's down there. Steve has done that on the pasture walk today. He took his backhoe out and dug out some holes, and I'm anxious to do that for our pasture walk, to look at his soil profile. But
yeah, bring your swimming trunks.
Yeah, we maybe we'll stock some fish in that hole today. I don't know. But you need to look at it. It needs to be crumbly. It needs to be crumbly looking like that. Folks, if it's more like modeling clay, when you dig it up and it's just this hard clump, you're not getting any penetration of water into there. And we were on Arizona. Jan and I did a project down there. We put in a grazing system in a desert, okay? This was land that hadn't had cattle on it for a good while. It was continuously grazed when it did have cattle on it, and they turned it into a desert. There wasn't any plants out there. And the whole time I'm putting this system in, I'm like, boy, I don't know. I think we're spending a lot of money here for nothing. But it was a government program trying to keep the water from washing all the dirt into the river. And so they got about $1 million on that project. And they hired Jan and I to put the water and the fence in there. And all it was is a great big L shape we made with high tensile wire, one strand. It had a perimeter on it. 5-strand bar, but we ran an L shape, and then we took and put water right underneath that fence. Folks, we were out there this last summer. I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. Those cattle went in there. Now they're using polywire, and they're doing strips like this across that desert. And those cattle had broken the soil capping, and they got a rain. They broke the soil capping, and that rain went in. And I mean, they had the dangest explosion of grass you've ever seen in your life in a desert. In a desert. Alejandro, how many of y'all heard of Alejandro Carrillo? Chihuahuan Desert, he's doing the same thing. Yep, I was there with Alejandro years ago, back in, well, it's probably been 20 years ago now. And yeah, I saw it. It's unbelievable what happens when you break that soil capping with a hoof. It lets the water in. It's the same way here. This is years. Folks, when we started on Judy Farms, we did soil tests, and our soil organic matter on some of those farms is 0.05%. 0.05. Not even a tenth. Today, we're up around 5 to 7%. We've had our farms the longest. So ruminant animals have done that with good management, okay? There's a finished beef. He's got wrinkles on him, and his britches are so full, it looks like if he takes another bite, it's going to explode his britches. And when you look at an animal walk away from you, their ass should waddle like this. They should have a waddle in their butt. If they don't, they don't have the fat. They're not finished. This is where we've been trying to get to for years, and we finally did. Folks, this brown matter you see in that picture in the foreground, that's winter stockpile that was grown the last fall, and we didn't graze it. We saved part of our farm for the spring flush. So we always have trouble getting good animal performance in the springtime. That grass gets up like this, it's tall and green, and those cows go in there and they just nail it, and you can't stand behind them. It's blasting out like diarrhea. And it's hard to get weight on cows when they're just really loose like that. So now when the cows come into this section of our farm, and they get a bite, they're getting a little bit of dry matter with each bite that they take, and that's huge. It helps dilute the high protein grass in the spring, and they gain weight. And you can go across that herd and look out there, and their tails are clean. I can remember seeing tails that had water dripping out of them. That's a sick feeling, because folks are getting ready to calve and they're losing weight. A cow that's losing weight when she calves is 60% breed back. A cow that's gaining weight when she calves is 93%. That's a big number. So the cows did that for me. I laid so many tons of carbon on the ground there. That's my deposit, and I'm gonna get a paycheck later, okay? That's my neighbor. He doesn't rotate. And this was in the drought that we were in, and you could take a golf ball and drop it in there and it would almost disappear. That crack went down the ground like that deep. Folks, even when he does get rain, he's not gonna grow any grass. And he didn't. This was the drought of 2012. Worst drought that ever hit Missouri. And I did a soil, I wish I had that picture, but I don't. I have a soil temperature probe I put on the top of his ground. Folks, we hit 108 degrees F, I think it was 45 days in a row. I mean, it was like a blast furnace. I'm like, it was killing trees. That's how dry it got. And I could go right across the fence. So his temperature was about 108 to 110. Ours was 82. 82. And if you walk through our pasture during the drought, you better wear some galoshes because your feet were going to be wet. Dew. People say, oh, that dew doesn't amount to anything. Yes, it does. We were up at Valley View, and Bill Hansen says, great, people don't realize this. But up here, he said, we have a really unfair advantage. We get dew. He was dry up there. Our feet were wet. We walked out into that grass. That dew stayed on his farm. It was probably 10:30 in the morning. Your feet were still wet. Well, if you don't leave any residual out there, you're not going to have any dew collection, and your feet are certainly not going to be wet. So don't let your farm get there. You're done. You're not going to grow any grass when you get to that point. Yes? This is a neighbor. He decided to plow up his field and start raising row crop. And so he doesn't like his soil very much. It's all coming over on our farm now. This is our water right here. We're not where we need to be yet, folks, or we wouldn't have that ditch full of water. But we're getting there. But you can see the color difference in the water coming off. He's lost that farm. He deep plowed it. And then when it rained, he had ravines that deep. You know what he did? Just disc over it. Planted it again the next year. Guess what? Another big rain came. There's the ravines right back again. I don't understand that. How can you be a farmer when you're exporting all your soil down in the river? I don't understand that. That's a soil pit we dug. That was my dad's farm. Dad was a plower. He liked to plow. And he said he liked the smell of that soil in the spring when he turned it over. It had a sweet smell to it. I didn't find out till later, but what he was smelling was soil that was dying. That's what you smell when you turn that soil over. That's soil that's dying. You've killed all the soil microbes. The organic matter, it's gone. It went up there. Keep your soil covered. If you want to, true wealth, to me, true wealth in ranching is soil wealth. If you can build soil, for every 1% organic matter that you build onto your farm, it holds 25,000 gallons of water per acre per year. So Judy Farm, we went from basically 0 to 5%. 5 times 20, we're holding 125,000 gallons of water now per acre per year. So when we do get dry, people around me, they freak out. That dang Judy, he gets more rain than we do. No, they're convinced of it. They are. And they'll make the comment when they'll see us moving a wire in the winter. Well, one of them told my intern the other day, this last winter, he had a big bale on his tractor, one on the front, one on the back. He's going to feed his cows, letting his tractor warm up. And the boys are out moving 300 head with a poly wire. He walked over the fence. He goes, you know what? That might work on Greg's farm, but it'd never work over here. It's all up here. Folks, that's my neighbor. He's been watching me do it for 30 years. He hasn't changed. Guess what happened this year? He quit his town job, and his wife got the cattle off the farm. You've got an expensive hobby, sir. It's gone. We're not going to subsidize that cow herd anymore. Yeah, that's a bad place to be, and he loved those cows. But he never made any money. He never made a dime. So my dad always said it was better to do nothing and make nothing than to do something and make nothing. Yeah. So make sure it makes dollars and cents, or don't do it. This is something I look for out on my pastures, folks. If I don't see spider webs out there in the morning when I'm moving my cows, there's something going on. I don't have any soil life. If you see thousands of spider webs, it should look like an ocean of spider webs. They're there for a reason. That's because you got all kinds of critters. We were on a farm at Dawson Creek on Thursday. And standing out in that paddock, there was stuff going all over the top of the ground. But he had a good organic matter. He had a good litter bank. And there was stuff all over that paddock. The pasture walk before that, the guy wasn't doing very good rotation. Matter of fact, he was just giving him the whole paddock. I didn't see any of that. There just wasn't any soil life. So yeah, that's winter stockpile. Those cattle still have the calves on them. They're grazing through. I call that snow. I know y'all. That's a dusting. Go ahead. So I told you earlier, a lot of our timber, we have a lot of timber on our farm, and it's not managed timber. It's timber that the trees are too close. And so we've brought in the foresters. We've marked them. We actually have the Missouri Forestry Association come out from the university. They'll bring in a bunch of students and they'll mark the trees. They'll mark the trees and they'll count basal area, which ones to leave, which ones to cut. We go in and cut them, and then we make this out of them. That's the first step. So that's the second step. That's in the wintertime. We're unrolling hay across these hills. And this is the third step. The pigs come in. Yep. And then the next step, we do have a sawmill now, and so we're sawing a lot of the logs that we take out of these areas. And then the next step. So we got in, years ago, I was cutting a ton of firewood off these pieces of ground. We take out about 90% of the trees. I like to leave a tree about every 100 feet. You got to get the sunlight down to the soil surface. If you leave too many trees, they're going to lay too much leaves on the ground, and that's fungal. That's fungal. When you go into a timbered area, folks, you're dealing with a 100% fungal environment in the soil. To grow good grass, according to Elaine Ingham, the soil biologist, Elaine's a sharp gal, she said you need 50% bacteria and 50% fungal. Well, the bacteria is that hay. So you bring in the hay and unroll it, you inoculate it with the cow hooves, they'll eat about 70%, they'll waste about 30 of it, and all of a sudden you're pushing that ratio more toward grass instead of trees. Okay? So I thought, well, what can I do with the rest of these trees? This is all the tops. That's not the trunks, that's the top section, the limbs. We got a cash crop now. We're selling shiitake mushrooms off of these logs. On a good fruiting, you'll get 1 to 2 pounds of mushrooms off of one log. Jan dries them. She sells them fresh to the restaurants, health food stores, $10 a pound. Our grazing school, she normally sells out on dried mushrooms. When you dry them, they'll last forever. Just put them in a Ziploc bag and they're good to go. You stick them back in water, they go back to the original shape. So shiitakes, that's another cash crop, another cash income source that we're getting from our Silvopasture establishment. Yep. The dog helps us pick the mushrooms. No, not really. She's waiting for me to throw that ball. We're getting a little bit of lumber we can build some furniture out of. So let's talk a little bit about grass genetics. This is a bull that's never had a bite of grain. I bought him down in Chihuahua, Mexico for a client and brought him to the United States. That bull's about this tall, but he's about that wide. And he's never had a bite of grain ever in his life. That's Elaine Ingham. We've done some soil workshops with her on the farm where we teach people how to do the microbes, the compost tea, how to build the proper compost pile without turning it anaerobic. That's a big one. I don't like this quote. And it's not my quote. But that question mark I put in at the end. But that phrase is used in the United States. It's on an agricultural building on a major university. When the kids walk up to learn every day about ag, they look at that. Nothing in nature is given. It is won. That's what we're teaching our kids in the United States today. Unless you get a bigger piece of equipment or a meaner chemical or a meaner club and beat nature into submission, you're not going to win. She's going to win. You're going to lose. That was me. That's why that quote reminds me of myself. Folks, I used to get up every morning and ask myself, what can I kill today? No, I did. Because I knew nature was going to try and put me out of business. What can I kill today? And then I met Ian. And he started saying, you know, before you start doing something on your farm, you're bringing in something that you're going to change, do something major. He said, get you a cold drink of water and go over in the shade and ask yourself this question. What would happen in this instance before a white man arrived with a firearm? How would this work out? And that has saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars of wasted inputs. Because they're always trying to throw money at something to fix it. That's our way we do things. I'll get that big shiny piece of metal, that'll take care of it. No, I'll get a deeper plow, that'll take care of it. No. Watch what happens in nature. This is harvesting energy through a kudu. That's on Ian's ranch. That kudu weighed about 1,000 pounds. He's got them all over his ranch. He doesn't have a high game fence around his ranch like his neighbors do. Why are the kudu flocking to Ian's ranch? When you walk on his pasture is just like walking on peat moss. It's because of all the organic matter he's built with that herd of cattle, rotating them. The bricks, the sugar content in his plants is through the roof. The animals are coming in and eating that, and now he's growing trophy-style kudu. That's a $12,000 bill right there. That's what he got for shooting. The guy had to pay to shoot that kudu. And Ian gets to keep the meat. That's a win-win. All he took home was the horns and the cape. But in Africa, you can sell the meat. So any wild game you kill on your farm, you can set up a stand in town and you can sell the meat. You own the game in Africa. Ian thinks it's a travesty to have a season. You own the land, you should be able to do what you want with it. I'm like, it doesn't work that way in the United States. They'll put you in jail for that. You can't just go out and shoot one. But they make a product out of there called bull tongue. Have anybody had bull tongue? Y'all like it? It's pretty good stuff. Yeah, I've had jerky, but I'd never had bull tongue before. Man, it's just dried meat. They use the air and they put a bunch of African spices on it. It's good stuff. So Ian calls this harvesting solar energy through a different energy level. Think about that. I can't legally sell a deer in my state, but I can sell this young man an opportunity to come kill one. Why not? How many calves does Ian have to raise to equal $12,000? A lot. Folks, in South Africa, their price is about 30 cents a pound. His taxes are over 50%. His input costs are exactly the same as the United States. And an African rand today is 18 to 1. 1 US dollar equals 18 rand. I mean, you talk about having handcuffs put on. Ian has to keep a very sharp pencil to make a profit over there. But it's forced him to do that. That's our website, Green Pastures Farm. That is my YouTube channel, Greg Judy Regenerative Rancher. I started that, I think it was in 2019, never thinking too much about it other than just kind of showing people what we're doing, trying to keep people from making some of the mistakes that I've made. And today, I think we're at 110,000 subscribers. A lot of people are hitting it. I think it's helping a lot of young people, especially getting started. I get emails every day from people that say, you saved us a lot of money. We didn't go out and waste all this money getting started. So that's, to me, is, I don't know, it just feels good to help people, and that's kind of what that channel's about. And with that, I think we're going to take a break. Everybody get up, stretch your legs, refreshments, and we'll meet back here in about 10 to 15 minutes.